Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Mustafa Mohammed Butri, and in today's tutorial, we're actually going to see how we can use JavaScript to hide and ensure our password. So this is usually implemented in registration forms and in login forms, right? So what we're actually going to do is let's jump into the JavaScript and then implement this quickly. So first, let's see what's inside the login form. So we have, the username and then the password, right? And this is actually the tag for the password. And we have this eye icon that you see right over here, which is crossed out over here. And we're actually passing a data attribute to it, right? So we are passing data.id-id, we are passing the password over here. And this is very important because we're actually not going to be grabbing this. We are actually not going to query this particular element using this ID, but rather the ID that is passed through this tag, right? That is what we're actually going to use to grab this particular tag over here. And we are doing that because, for instance, if we want to change this particular form to a registration form and still give users the opportunity to be able to toggle from seeing their password to hiding their password, we want one function to be able to implement that. So that is what we are actually going to do. So we come in here and we are going to grab all the I tags. So we say document.query selector all, and we'll grab the I tag and we'll run a for each on it. So we say for each icon, we want to add an event listener. And what event listener do we want to add to it? The click, right? So when a user click on it, we want something to happen. So for instance, we can console log click, right? Or clicked. So right now, if we go back and then we reload and then we open our console, realize that as soon as I click on this, it says what? Clicked. Good. So now what do we want to do? We want to grab this particular input element, right? So come down here. First things first, let's grab this particular attribute. We want to grab this password, right? So to get this password, we're saying let attribute, for instance, ID is equal to the icon.get attribute. And what attribute do you want to get? The data-id. So this is actually going to give us the content inside this, which is what? Password. So if we go back and then, for instance, we console log it, and we reload our page and we open our console and then we click, we get password. Good. So we'll be using this attribute in place of what? Of this ID. So instead of us querying to do something like document query selector, pound sign and then the password, we've actually passed the content here over here, and we are grabbing it from here to work with it because we want to make it what? Dynamic. So let me proceed so that you appreciate what is happening. So over here we want to get that particular input. So we say let input is equal to document.query selector, and then we'll use the template literal sign. So we use the backtick and then we'll pass our money sign and then we'll pass the what? The attribute ID. So this is actually grabbing the input element of type password. So what do we want to do? We also want to grab the type here, right? We want to grab the type here because we want to toggle between password and then test. So we have to grab this attribute. So we'll come here and then we'll say let input attribute goes to what? The input dot get attribute. All right. And what do you want to get? What kind of attribute you want to get? We want to get the type. So upon selecting the type, we're actually going to get the content in here. So then we'll proceed and say what? If, for instance, the input attribute, okay, is equal to, for instance, password, we would like to set the input and set the attribute to what? Type of what? Test. This is what we want to do. Else, we'll set the input, set the attribute to type of password. So this is what we are doing. So we realize that when we save and then we reload our page, if I type something in here and I click on the eye icon, I get that. When I click back on it, I get this. So when we click on it, we show the password. When we click back on it, we hide it. But this is not actually effective. We have to also ensure that we toggle between this icon. So over here we have the class of I, we also have the class of what? I crossed. And if we go back to our HTML, we actually have the initial I is I crossed. So we have to toggle between that two. So we'll say if, for instance, the icon, right? So saying over here, since we are setting it to test, we'll say icon dot class list dot add. We want to add fi dot rr dot I, and then we'd like to remove, so class list dot remove the crossed. So all that we are saying is if we set the input type to test, we want to add the the class what? FRRI, and then want to remove the I crossed. Else, let's copy this. It's going to be the reverse. So let's copy this and then paste it here. So we'll actually add the I crossed, crossed here, and we'll actually remove the I. So let's save this and then let's go back, reload, and then let's try it. So let me type password in here. So when I click on this, we see password and then it's gone. When I click back on it, we get this. So basically, this is the simple code you can write in JavaScript, okay, to implement this functionality. Now, for instance, let's say we are changing this from a login to a registration, right? So we have to have like what? Confirm password. So let me copy the whole of this and then paste it here. And then we're actually going to type confirm here, confirm password. And then we'll give this, instead of the ID password, give it C password, and we'll pass the C password over here too. So you see, we're actually not going to write any new function. The old function that we wrote over here, or this implementation, is actually going to do the same thing. So if we go back and then we reload, we actually get password and then confirm password. So over here, for instance, I'm actually going to write Nevada, and over here I'm going to write Santa Bay, right? So if I click over here, we see, Santa Bay. So we see Santa Bay over here. We'll see what? Nevada, right? So that is what it's doing. I deliberately wrote Santa Bay and then Nevada over here to let you know that it's actually functioning as it's supposed to. So you can write this simple function to actually hide and then show your password. I hope this tutorial is helpful to you, and then you implement it in your JavaScript work when you are working on a project. So thank you for having a time to watch this tutorial, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.